Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Packers News JS Online live post-game analysis with Mr. LeRoy Butler and myself, Tom Silverstein from the Journal Sentinel. And you're shaking your head, and I think I know why. I mean, that was not a pretty game for the Green Bay Packers. 28-22 loss to Minnesota. I still think Dalvin Cook is still running with the football somewhere.
Well, it seems like he always have a great game for whatever reason, and they did not play well, obviously. But these are the games we always talked about when you're playing these 1-5 teams. That's why when you beat the Texans, it should have been more of a big deal. But the fans, they're kind of like, well, whatever. It's a bad team, but you got to be focused every week to play these teams. You can't look past anybody to the San Francisco game. But the problem was, it seemed like to me, they had problem with the double teams, Tom. I mean, they were doubling Kenny Clark, getting to the next level, and then your middle linebacker was cut off. And for the most part, they just want to get Dalvin Cook in the secondary. I mean, whenever you and this was similar to the Tampa game. Tom Brady was like 11 or 12 or something, but he only threw for like 160 yards. Kirk Cousins, 11 or 14, 160 yards. Normally, you got to put more stress on your quarterbacks to make them the heroes.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just let them run the football because it seemed like that's the same thing happened when you played San Francisco. Jimmy Garoppolo threw it 8 times.
Right.
So that's the blueprint with this defense. If you run the ball on them, you have success.
Your point is really well taken about the double teams and not getting the second level. And the thing with that is that that's one thing if it's Ronald Jones, but when it's Dalvin Cook, really, as soon as he gets even at the line of scrimmage, then he's got 4 yards at a minimum because he's just going to bulldoze over people. He's so talented. And I just don't know why they couldn't deal with those double team blocks. He was just cutting right behind them, and the linebackers seemed late. The safeties were non-existent. Could you put your finger on anything as to what they could have done better?
Well, they were in their base defense. They're in their run-stopping defense. It just comes to them. It comes to guys staying in their gap. But for the most part, if you can't control that double team, he's going to block you and that linebacker and get to the next level. And then the screen pass, along with the 50-yard pass, it looked like when they played Kamara, when they had a bunch of missed tackles.
Yeah.
Guys are just becoming hitters instead of tacklers. You got to grab cloth or grab body parts and fall down where you can't just run in there like a torpedo. You're just going to bounce off. And this is one of those bad losses if you never get home field throughout, or if you never get to a second round of the playoffs, you say we should have won that game. This is Matt LaFleur's first divisional loss. He's 8-1, but it's just at home. It's just a real bad, glaring loss after you played a team like the Texans who were bad.
Yeah.
Coming in, this team was depleted in the secondary.
Oh my gosh! But even so, the wind kind of neutralized everything, made it hard to throw. But that all those things are equal.
Yeah.
And what the difference was that their defense, the Packers' defense, was just terrible. And one of the things that I think you hit on was that they were playing a lot of base defense. They don't play base defense. They're not a base defense team. And then all of a sudden they're asked to stop the run. The base defense, nobody knows how to play it because they're always in nickel.
Yeah, and they wanted to try to get Kamal and Chris Barnes out there at the same time. And Dean Lowry did have a sack, but as far as penetrating, they just weren't able to do that. If you don't penetrate and get to the next level in this kind of zone blocking scheme, and you have a running back like that with great feet, one cut and go, you're going to have a problem. Because remember, everybody sees this tape, Tom, and they just think that's how you beat the Green Bay Packers. Although I think the Packers won on time of possession, but it didn't seem like that, though. from the 10-play, 85-yard drive. They ate up a bunch of the clock, and you were thinking time is running out for you to eventually get something going. Now, Devontae Adams still got 3 touchdowns, but again, you just never seemed like they had control over this game for whatever reason. You have to give Zimmer a lot of credit, Tom. He had a great game plan with a bunch of guys. He sort of had the same game plan that Petty had last week against the Texans. Keep everything in front of you.
Yeah.
They're going to make some plays. Eventually, our offense will be part of our defense.
Zimmer, according to Rodgers, he kept both the safeties back, in a cover 2 look, and he doesn't do that. And it was just because they're not going to let Devontae Adams beat him. On the one hand, he scored 3 touchdowns, but on the other hand, they shut him out pretty much in the second half. And that was the difference. The Packers couldn't shut out Dalvin Cook, and, the Vikings did a decent job. Now, I think they're in kind of a dogfight in this division now.
Well, it depends on what Chicago does. They're playing right now. Currently, they're playing the Saints. And last time I checked, they were 3-3, so I don't know what the score is.
Yeah, I think the Bears scored a touchdown. So.
Oh, okay. Well, and see, the Bears defense is very good, pretty good. So they're going to always hang around. So for some reason they beat the Saints and get to 6-2, then you're right. It is going to be a dogfight. But earlier it just looked like, let's go all the way back when they were 4-0, Tom, the best team in the league, scoring more points. Everything seemed to be great. They do have a lot of injuries, but that's not an excuse when you play a team like the Vikings, who traded away everybody.
Yeah.
Daniel Hunter, one of their best pass rushers, had neck surgery on Tuesday. The kid Yannick, they traded him to the Ravens. So there's just a bunch of young guys out there, and they played hard today. You have to give them a lot of credit.
They did.
Yeah, so it's one of these losses, again, it's tough, because had this been an AFC team, okay, you could dismiss it. But these losses like this, you just got to win these kind of games, because it puts you in a position to, if it's any kind of tiebreaker or something like that down the stretch, you'd win out from that.
What's your thought on Mike Pettin and what needs, really looking at his scheme, whether they can win with it?
Well, it's hard to say, because sometimes people, like to say, it's scheme. Some people like to say it's talent.
Right.
But I think the only way the fans will feel good about this, if for some reason they make a huge trade for like Quentin Williams or something tomorrow or tonight to make the fan base feel good about it. Other than that, people are going to say, well, I get it. We're going to win a lot of games and we're going to lose. That's all I've been hearing.
Yeah.
We beat up on these bad teams and we have nothing to show for it. And I try to talk them off the ledge and say, wait a minute, it's a long season. At the end of the day, you're 5-2, but you can play a team like San Francisco on a short week. This is a short week. So that's the good news. It's a short week. You got to get ready for San Francisco, and it's a win that you must have just from the mental. You remember back in the 90s, Tom, when we played the Cowboys all the time,
Yeah.
they were winning, and then eventually we did get them to Lambeau Field, and we beat them.
Right.
But you have to turn your attention now straight to San Francisco. You got to forget about the Viking game, the fans, and we're not going to forget about it.
Yeah. One of your followers, Kevin, asks whether this is more on Brian Gutekunst for not giving Patton the right amount of players. And there's two ways to look at this. If they were to trade for Quentin Williams, would it matter? Would it matter if you don't like the scheme that he's got, and it's ineffective? Why would you trade everybody, trade a whole bunch of stuff for this guy? I wonder, is it the players or is it the scheme? That's something they got to decide.
Well, the reason why a lot of people want them to trade draft picks, because they don't think some of these draft picks have been working out.
Yeah.
So if you have to give up three draft picks, and some of these draft picks are either hurt or they're not contributing, then who cares? but it would make the fan base feel good about going for it. So, if you could put another run stopper in there, you could maybe change up the scheme just a little bit. But it does come down to your individual performers. And it seemed like the same thing that happened in the San Francisco game. You saw that happen today, and you couldn't get control over stopping. Now, Amos made a couple plays that I thought was very significant at times. But the first half got so far away from them, Tom, and in the third quarter, they just ate up all the big plays. And that 50-yard pass, that kind of broke their back at that particular time. And then, the offense didn't really turn it on like I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
For them turn it on. But once you take away Devontae Adams, the other guys, you were hoping they would step up, and it really didn't happen.
Well, bless Jamal Williams for as hard as he plays and everything he gives you. But he's not Aaron Jones. And
Robert Tonyan played a hell of a game.
Yeah, he did. But Aaron Jones gets around the corner on some of those runs. He turns, 8-yard runs into 25-yard runs. They badly miss him. But that's welcome to the NFL. That's how it goes. Tell that to the Vikings secondary coach, about injuries. Go try to cry to him. By the way, the Vikings cornerback Cameron Dantzler is okay. He's got movement in all his body parts. He's got a concussion, and I believe he's still in the hospital. So just for people who are watching. Another subject is the officiating. A lot of fans are not happy with it. I'm never one to really care about the officiating. It's bad usually for both sides, but there were some controversial calls in this one, especially some holding calls that I was looking at.
Yeah.
Wondering.
Well, the pass interference though down in the fourth quarter, that's a big. I mean, the guy got, I think it was Tonyan. He got him wrapped up. It was Tonyan or Sternberg, I forget.
Tonyan, yeah.
Harris got him wrapped up, and then, I'm thinking that's interference all day. And then they picked Zimmer, because it's on their sideline. Zimmer goes nuts. They pick up the flag. I'm like, what? How can you throw a flag on a play like that and then pick it up and then really not explain it? So, and I would agree with you about the officiating, but it was a couple of very questionable calls. I'm sure Matt LaFleur is going to turn it into the league and say, what is going on here? And it could have been a difference maker. But I agree with the aggressiveness, though, of Matt LaFleur. He was 3 out of 5 on fourth down. He goes for it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So his team likes that aggressiveness. So once you go up 14-0, or they're the only team in the league, really seems like, to score in their opening drive, you're thinking, okay, that's what you want to see. But then all of a sudden, Aaron missed a couple throws.
Yeah.
A couple wide open guys. It could have been a different game had he connected with those guys. But again, it's just a real bad loss in all caps. It really is.
Yeah, the 4th and 10, you can question, but really I thought they were playing good enough offense at the time to go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, really, they didn't kick the field goal because the wind was too bad. Going in that direction, too, was really bad.
Right.
But they could have punted. They could have tried to knock it down in the corner. But, I think when you're playing offense well, you try to take advantage of it.
Oh, no question. And I think the guys like that. They like an opportunity. Give me a chance to make a big play, and especially when you think you got a team on the ropes. But and one thing I will say that was good about it, when they were down 14, LaFleur still tried to establish the run. That kind of keeps you in it, because if you're throwing it every play and you're not getting what you want, a couple of times Aaron forced it to Devontae, and he was double, triple teamed at times.
Yeah.
And you got the other guys got to make plays because they're getting the one-on-ones, and they're turning. And I like the deep over routes. They got to run more of those down the field. That should be very successful against San Francisco, a team like to play a lot of a lot of deep thirds.
Yeah.
You got a deep middle one, high safety. You could run a lot of those.
Well, those tight ends did a nice job running those routes. Tanyan caught up with that ball. Sternberger would still be running if Rodgers wouldn't have overthrown him.
That's a difference. That may be a difference in the game if that happens.
Yeah. Yep. Nice look. That's Tanyan getting ready to pull in his.
Yeah,
all right. So how do they regroup? I mean, you can't change bad tackling and lack of energy and overnight. You got to do, I don't know what LaFleur does.
Well, he got to get these guys focused in on San Francisco at this point. You know, the leaders of this team is Darius Smith, Aaron Rodgers. They got to understand the reason why they didn't go to the Super Bowl last year is because the team they're about to play, San Francisco. That's motivation enough. But they did get Tyler Irvin back to get some motion on the offense. Hopefully you can get Bakhtiari back. Maybe you can get Aaron Jones back, Kevin King back, and see how your team, when they were 4-0, when they were just, rolling on offense. But the thing about the defense, though, real quick, I never really thought in that 4-0 stretch the defense was doing that great.
No.
Because they
weren't getting anybody did.
No turnovers, no sack. You just knew sooner or later, is that going to come or not?
Yeah, they can't. No, it's not. It's 3 turnovers in 7 games. That's just not getting it done. So anyway, all right. Well, it was an interesting game, and we're going to be back here in 3 days. 4 days actually.
Yeah.
So, we got to go get some rest. Anyway, you got some sponsors?
Yep. Yeah. The Jury Center, of course. I love what they're doing. A good friend of mine actually is trying to get married in a pandemic, and he got his wife's ring at the shoptjc.com and Ivanhoe's Pub and Eatery. And of course, my Game Day Brats. Go to GameDayBrats.com. And of course, Pick and Save. I appreciate everything they're doing. We're going to be feeding a lot of families this particular month that this is. I hope everybody put their clocks back. Mine was kind of automatic. But again, the Packers, bad loss, but I think they'll bounce back, and we'll find out. We'll get to 5 questions because it's a short week, and then we'll get back to – hopefully they can get back on the winning track.
Yeah, we'll take a look at San Francisco in X's and O's, and we'll talk about, looking ahead. So thanks for joining me, as always. And
Will Schultz, too, our executive producer. I appreciate him.
Yeah, be sure to go to all our coverage at JS Online and PackersNews.com, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.